I am so excited to be able to share this video with you today. So I hope you stick around and watch it because this is going to change the game. So as we know, some of the greatest features that ChatGPT offers are also some of the most frustrating. And two of the biggest are custom GPTs and ChatGPT projects. Now, this is kind of specifically for ChatGPT, but what I'm going to share in this video can actually be used in any other large language model as well. So if you haven't used custom GPTs or if you haven't used projects yet, you should. They're incredibly useful. And the use cases alone could probably easily be an entire video on itself. But what we need to talk about is really the elephant in the room. So even if you haven't created a custom GPT or a project yet or a gem in Gemini, you're going to want to stick around for the next few minutes because I'm going to share something that is going to prevent you a ton of headaches. And what I'm talking about is the moment that you try to build something serious with a custom GPT or a project, you hit that hard wall. And that is the 8,000 character limit. And that really, when you break it down, is about 1,200 words. That's it. And at first, that sounds like that might be plenty enough room until you actually try to build something real. Then suddenly you have to start cutting things out. You have to simplify your system. You have to remove some of the structure. And most people just accept the limit and attempt to work around it. It's what I did too, which, to be honest with you, sucked. I hated doing that. And I'll kind of explain a little bit more of that in a moment. The frustrating part about that is, but now I don't care about the limit at all because I discovered a way to change the architecture of how it works. And it honestly feels like an exploit in the system. It's not, so you don't have to worry. It's not doing anything bad, but I'm going to actually expose that quote unquote exploit. And what's interesting is this discovery didn't just solve one problem for me. It actually opened up some completely new possibilities that really are changing the way that I'm communicating with AI. And I'm not saying that to be clickbaity. It truly is, but it's honestly way too much to discuss in just this video. So today, I just want to show you this exploit because once you understand this, then what I'm about to show you in the next videos in this series, they're going to blow your mind. So here's my quick shameless plug. If you're not subscribed yet, you may want to do that so you don't miss those videos when I do publish them in the next couple of days. So before we get into this, one last thing I just want to say real quick. I am by no means an AI expert. I don't claim to be, and I really want to make that clear. I'm just some dude that spends way too much time using these tools, paying attention to what works and what doesn't. And every once in a while, I notice a pattern that turns into something useful. And this was one of those like earth-shattering moments for me. So here's where we begin, right? What first confused me when I ran into this, and at first I thought the problem was simple. 8,000 characters just isn't enough. That seemed obvious. But after running into this limit over and over and over again, I started noticing something strange. That sometimes shorter instructions actually worked better than longer instructions. And that didn't really make a lot of sense to me because logically, right, the more instructions should mean more control, right? But that was not what I was seeing. See, sometimes I'd remove a chunk of the instructions and the GPT would actually become more consistent. And that was the first sign that something deeper was going on because it meant the problem probably wasn't just the limit. It meant I might be solving the wrong problem entirely, right? So here's the assumption that I was making, and I think that most people make the same assumption without even realizing it. And that assumption is that the instructions box is where the entire system has to live in the GPT or the project. Now, if you're new to this, think of the instructions box as your master prompt. This is the core set of the directions that tells the AI or the custom GPT or the project who it is and how to act before you even type your first message, right? And people feel like if they want their GPT to behave a certain way, every single rule has to be packed into that one prompt field or that instruction field. So naturally, you start building what is basically a full instruction manual. You put the tone rules, the style rules, formatting rules, processes, examples, constraints, use cases, basically everything. The instructions get longer and longer and longer until you eventually hit that limit. And then you have to start making that painful decision. What do I cut? That's the frustrating part. What do I cut? Do I remove some of the examples? Do I remove formatting rules? Do I change some of the constraints or remove them? Do I remove parts of the process? And every time that you cut something, the GPT just gets a little bit worse, right? It might be consistent, but it's not what you're looking for, right? It's less structured. It's less predictable. It's more generic. So at that point, it really feels like the character limit really is the problem. It's the real bottleneck. But this is where something actually changed for me, clicked for me. ChatGPT isn't only reading that instruction box. It's actually looking at the entire context window, which includes your instructions, which is your prompt more or less, your uploaded files, as well as your chat history all at once. Right now, projects are a little bit different because projects do not need to have your memory. You can actually just build memory inside your projects. But for the most part, ChatGPT or custom GPTs are going to access your prior conversations in the memory and all that kind of stuff. But once I really understood that was when something shifted, because suddenly I realized the instruction box does not have to contain the entire system. It only has to tell ChatGPT how to behave when it sees the information it needs. Now, that might sound like a small difference, but it's actually huge. And the easiest way to see it is with a simple example. So imagine that you want to build a custom GPT that helps you write a structured blog post. So the normal way that you might do this would be to put everything inside that prompt, inside that instruction box. So you'd write something like this, and this is just going to be a very, very brief summarized version, but you might write something like this. You are a professional blog writing assistant. I always want you to write in a clear and natural tone, use short paragraphs, start with a strong introduction or hook, use section headings, include practical examples, avoid generic advice, maintain a conversational style, end with a clear conclusion, follow consistent formatting. And then you keep going, right? You add more tone rules, more structure rules, more constraints, examples, and eventually you're pushing right up against that 8,000 character limit. Now, here's where the shift happens. Instead of putting the entire system into the instruction box, you move the full instructions somewhere else that ChatGPT can read, that it can still read. Now, if you haven't seen this before, both custom GPTs and projects have a section where you can upload files. For GPTs, it's called knowledge, and for projects, it's called projects files. And this is where you can upload documents that the AI can actually reference. So you create a simple text file called fullinstructions.txt or whatever the file is, or PDF or whatever. And that file contains the complete system. It contains all of the formatting rules, all of the style rules, all of the examples, all of the constraints. Everything lives in that document. Then the instruction box, well, that becomes a lot easier because instead of it being a full instruction manual, it might just now say something like this. When responding to the user, follow the complete system described in fullinstructions.txt or whatever the file name is that you called it, right? Make it in the actual little prompt that you call out the exact file name so that it knows what to do, right? So the rest of that prompt is treat that file as the definitive source of truth for tone, structure, and formatting. Always reference the logic in that file before generating a response. Essentially, what that simple prompt does is it says, basically refer to that file to know what to do, right? And that's exactly what you're doing, which is a lot easier than trying to put everything into that 8,000 character limit and then having to remove information and so forth. And really, that's it. The instruction box defines the behavior. The detailed system lives in the external instructions, right? Whatever that file is that you called it, right? And what's even cooler is that you can chain these files together. So if you have a massive library of examples that would never fit in a prompt, you can just add another line to your instruction box that says, for a full list of examples, refer to example sources.txt. The key idea is this. The instruction box tells ChatGPT how to use the information. The information itself does not have to live there. That's the part that feels like an exploit, because you realize the character limit is just an instruction limit. It's not a capability limit. And once that clicked for me, I stopped trying to cram the entire brain into that one box. Instead, I focused on making the instruction box a behavior layer. And behavior is actually pretty small compared to content. You don't need thousands of characters to define behavior clearly. You just need clean rules: what to prioritize, how to respond, what to follow, what to avoid. And that fits very easily into 8,000 characters. And the same exact idea applies to projects too. Projects have the same trap. People treat project instructions like the entire system has to live there too. So they try to make it completely self-contained. And again, they hit that ceiling. But project instructions work the same way. They steer the behavior. They don't have to contain every detail. And once you understand that, the frustration with the character limit is basically gone. You stop having to write instruction manuals and you start writing behavioral rules. And your systems actually become a lot more consistent, not less. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a discovery that ended up leading me into something much bigger. Because once I started designing these instruction boxes as a behavior layer instead of storage space, well, it opened up some completely new ways of working with AI. And that's what I'm going to cover in the next videos in this series, because that's where this goes from being useful to being kind of mind-blowing. So if you want to see where this leads, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one. And if you've ever hit that instruction limit wall, right, let me know in the comments, because I know a lot of people run into this same issue, and I've never seen someone explain it this way, or kind of show how this could be worked around. So I hope this helps. Please, if you do not understand this, just watch the part of the video again that kind of goes into what this is. But essentially, just to summarize this, is that you're taking your prompt, your instructions, whatever that ends up being, and instead of trying to fit all of that into the instruction box of the project or the custom GPT, you just turn that into its own file and upload that as a source. And then basically now just tell the instructions, reference that exact source file and mention the name of it, .pdf, .txt, mention the whole name of the file, and let it pull the information from there, right? And you're going to be able to see how awesome this can be, because now you can actually build really, really strong projects and GPTs and never have to worry about that 8,000 character kind of limit in the instructions again. So with that, I hope this helps. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys on the next video. The next video I think is really going to blow your minds. And I'm not just trying to say that to get you to watch it. I think for those of you that do decide to watch it, you're going to be very pleasantly surprised. At least I hope so. So other than that, thanks so much for watching. This is Craig. I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye.